What's up, guys? My name's Jared, here with another episode of Film Schooled, where we grade videos on three different scales: critic, fan, and casual. In today's video, we're going over Gladiator II. Gladiator II came out on November 22nd, 2024, and was directed by the one and only Ridley Scott. Scott returned to his Gladiator franchise after over 20 years since it first came out in the year 2000. The original budget for the film was about $200 million, and so that means they've gone over $100 million over their original budget, and let's just hope they actually don't lose money off this film. The star-studded cast of this movie includes Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, Joseph Quinn, and returning from Gladiator is Connie Nielsen. Denzel Washington is very particular in the films he chooses to star in, so he must have saw something special, which he even said in the interview when he was reading the script. Production for the movie started in June 2023, but was shortly halted due to the actor strike and resumed in January 2024, where they finished filming it. Ridley Scott's excuse for why he never made a Gladiator II film so soon or earlier in his career was because he was just frankly busy, and so was his people that he wanted to work with. The movie had a little bit of controversy with its first few trailers releasing, including the first one having a hip-hop soundtrack, which took the viewers away from their experience watching the video, and also that Scott was going to rely too much on the CGI instead of practical effects like he did in the first film. Although the first trailer might have had a little bit of controversy, it still amassed over 138 million views on social media in the first 24 hours. Gladiator II is a direct sequel from the first Gladiator film, so make sure to watch that before watching Gladiator II. The Gladiator movies are also loosely based off true events, but not really enough to actually know enough facts for it, and Gladiator II is even more fiction than fact. Without talking too much more about the films, let's get into the grades. Let's start off with the critic grade. The movie pulled in a lot of critics because of how well the first film was made. However, if I were a critic, and after waiting 20 years of watching the first one to review this movie, I'd be pretty disappointed. The movie was good with a well thought out story, but it just wasn't as dramatic or provoking as the first film. If I were a critic basing my viewpoints off the first film, Gladiator II would be pretty low, but if I was critic for Gladiator II as a standalone movie, I'd put it a little higher than what I'd do if I had to base it off the first one. I'd give Gladiator II a B grade for the critic viewpoint because there's definitely some bias with the first film being so great that the Gladiator II wouldn't be the best, but it's still part of the franchise, so it makes it a little higher compared to other sequels, and it also wasn't just a great movie to begin with, so that's why it gets a B. Trying to establish what a fan grade is for this film is a little hard because there's only been one film in the franchise, so I'd have to base it off the cult following of that film, and also I'm going to base it off fans of Ridley Scott. As a fan, I'd be ecstatic that there's a Gladiator II coming out with some of the same characters, but I don't think the characters they brought back or referenced were given that same level of treatment in Gladiator II as in the first film. Gladiator II also didn't bring about some great monologues as the first film. Additionally, fans of Ridley Scott might continue to be a little disappointed with what he did in Gladiator II and following Napoleon, his previous film he worked on and released, because it just shows that his quality is getting a little lower than what fans might expect of him. So as a fan, I'd give the grade a C+ because it honestly just kind of disappointed some people, in my opinion. As a casual moviegoer, I'm going to assume that they have seen the first Gladiator before going into Gladiator II, because if they didn't, they'd definitely have some questions, not some, a lot of questions about the movie, and it would honestly just take away from their experience watching it. With it being a Gladiator movie, it'll have some pretty intense violent scenes, and so that might be a turnoff for some, but again, I'd hope they would expect that going into the Gladiator movie, so if they didn't, then they should research their movies beforehand. For the casual grade, it gets a B because, frankly, it was a good time watching it for most, but it just didn't scream greatness or exceptional time, and so that's why it gets a B.